Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about attention. So we'll start with what is it? What is attention in the first place? Talk about early versus late selection, feature integration theory, which is a theory that tries to explain the findings for early versus late attention. And then finally, we'll talk about a case study, spatial neglect. So this is a neuropathology where you cannot pay attention to things, which is really interesting phenomenon in the first place. So hopefully you find this interesting. So, all right. This is the time to kind of pay attention. So attention research got a big boost late 1990s, where people were starting to use cell phones more regularly, and they were starting to text while they were driving, and there was a huge increase in fatalities due to trying to text while you're driving. And a really interesting paper came out showing that it's actually about the attention, the lack of attention that people are paying, rather than a dexterity thing. So originally, people thought that it was because you're using one hand or even sometimes two to try and text, that you're not able to get back to the steering wheel, and so the dexterity issue. But this paper had a lot of support for the idea that it was about attention. And so since then, attention research has really taken off. There's been some really interesting stuff that came out. So a lot of exciting things going on in cognitive psychology these days. So the most famous version of a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is Where's Waldo? So Where's Waldo is a visual search experiment, basically. So you are visually searching for something. So you're given a target. In this case, the target is Waldo, and you are trying to find Waldo throughout. So I'm going to be giving you a lot of examples of this, and what I want you to be doing is try and figure out introspectively, like looking at how you're actually doing it, figure out, what is your tactic? How do you go about finding Waldo? So typically I do this in class, which I realized I should have changed this. So you can clap your hands if you find him. In this one, Waldo is right here if you haven't been able to find him yet. Okay, so that's the first Where's Waldo. And now what about this one? Go ahead and see if you can find Waldo. You can go ahead and pause the video and see if you can find him. All right, so even though I know the general location of where he is, it still takes me some time to find him. There he is. So this is Waldo right here. So if you did that, if you looked for Waldo and you figured out, okay, how are you going about doing that? The typical responses that I get, especially like in class when I'm talking to students, is that they will first look for red stripes. So you're going to look across this entire picture, and all of the red stripes are going to kind of pop out at you. And then systematically, you're going to move your eyes to each of the locations in which there's red stripes and see if there's some other features like his hat or his camera, that sort of stuff, his glasses, until you find the correct individual. And so there's kind of multiple steps going on when you're doing a visual search experiment, where some things are popping out at you, and then you're using your eyes to go around and look at particular parts. And so we're going to try and tease apart all of those aspects of attention and see what we've learned about them and how all of that works. Finding Panda is another one that I found, which I kind of found interesting. So there's a panda in this picture. If you look around the picture, you might eventually find the panda, which is right here. And then if I do the same thing, find panda, but now I give you this image. Give you a second, and the panda's right there. And so in this example, I have two different things going on. The first one is that the panda himself is a little bit different. I haven't actually given you the target, and so it's harder to find. But in this image, it should have been a little bit easier to find because the panda is in black and white. It's a line drawing compared to more realistic pictures for the distractors, the things that are not the panda, we will be calling distractors. So all of the black and white images here, the distractors in this image, are much more related to the panda. So it's typically much more difficult to find the target that you're looking for in a visual search paradigm or a visual search experiment if the distractors, if the other things that are in the image are closely related in stimuli to the target that you're looking for. And so these are all really interesting things, and things that we should pull out and really experimentally look at in cognition. Okay, so let's just start with what is attention. And so William James, the father of American psychology, calls it taking possession of the mind, a concentration of consciousness. I just love how he writes. Gottlieb, improvement in the ability to discriminate, detect, or memorize attended objects. Or book, the book that we're using, a mechanism that enables one to process relevant inputs, thoughts, or actions while ignoring others. And so there's kind of a lot of definitions, and honestly, we're not entirely sure exactly what attention is at this point in time in cognitive research. But what we do know is that there are different aspects of attention and that we can kind of separate them and study them independently. So what we will be using in this class is that we have a limited capacity to process information. We have a huge amount of information coming in from all of our senses, but we have a limited capacity of what we can process, of how much we can process. And that amount is lower than the amount that we're taking in. And so there's this competition between the items that are coming in. We need to figure out what are the things that are relevant to us, so that we can use that information. So that information will be processed, while some of the more useless information, like, I'm in my bedroom right now and the bed in the background, that's useless information for me because my current goal is teaching. And so we have this competition for items, and then attention comes in and will select the stuff that's most relevant to our current goals, the most important thing, the most behaviorally relevant thing that's coming in to our senses. But it's also at a cost of others. So we're selecting the stuff that's important, but that comes at a cost. We basically ignore everything else that's not related to that, the thing that's most relevant to us, the thing that we're selecting. And so the key takeaway here is that attention is really kind of a two-part cognitive function. It's selecting and inhibiting. It's selecting and ignoring, enhancing and suppressing. And so it's kind of got that two sides of the kind of same mechanism. Okay. And so again, when we're walking about the street, if you go out these days, maybe not going out as much, but if you just look around your environment, there's a huge amount of information that's coming in. But again, we have this limited processing capacity, but we have this sensory overload. And so attention is really, really beneficial to us, so that we're not overloaded. Our brains can select the stuff that's coming into our senses that's relevant and that we're going to need for behavior. But everything else we can just ignore, which is a really powerful and very useful thing that our brain is capable of doing. And so, yeah, so that is the introduction to what attention is. And then we'll break it down into more components and that sort of thing in just one moment.